The next question we have is from Generic Jam.
Okay.
Are there any tax code hacks you've got? Like, can I create an LLC or something and write off development costs as a company expense?
Yeah. So, uh, first and foremost, I would say, uh, the only thing that has like a worse punishment than murder is cheating on your taxes. You're going to get your ass in trouble. So don't do that. But do everything you can under the law, and you'll know we call them loopholes or all that stuff. You have to learn to play the game properly. But as far as hacks, so yeah, you can start an LLC, and the overall tax rate is about half of what it is to a personal rate. So let's say you're paying 30, 35% or whatever average tax rate as a guy, you might be paying 15 to 20% on your LLC. Now, the real trick is you've got to make money for tax write-offs to do you anything. So you don't want to be just a guy with making games and have an LLC, because you have to pay. It's at least it costs you at least $1,000 a year just to have an LLC, in terms of formation and minimum payments and paperwork and paying your tax person and all that stuff. So it's only useful after you have revenue, and even individuals can write off a lot of personal stuff. And so I'm going to sum this long answer up into a short one. Don't worry about that unless you need legal formation stuff with other guys and you're going to put money in, and you need a legal way to like figure out how to divvy it up, or you're making more than like $100,000 a year. Because if you don't have other guys involved, you don't need the legal paperwork. And if you're not making more than $100,000, there's like how much it costs you to deal with the LLC versus how much write-off stuff you're going to get. There's a line in there, and maybe it's $50,000. I don't know, but it's somewhere in that range of amount of money before it becomes useful. So don't do it too early.
Something else you should look into, is because of something I looked into, is check your state ordinance as well, because sometimes your state ordinance will say something different than your like the federal will, and that's for inside the U.S. I don't know about outside the U.S. at all, but because I know Indiana and Michigan have completely different LLC laws. They are very different. So
yeah. Taxes just don't get fancy unless you get advice.
Okay. All right. I guess we got another question coming in for token taken user. Is that right?
That's about right. Yeah. Hello,
okay.
Everyone.
Hello.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Glad to be here. So I like hypotheticals. So imagine having an unlimited budget. Somebody's giving you all the money you need, and gives you total creative freedom. What would the game look like that you were to make then? And how would you organize the company and like the team?
Boy, that is a tough one. Because, right, I don't think that's a good problem to have.
I can take this.
I'll let you go in a second, Fluffy. The reason I say that is because you're going to want to do something big, and that's okay. But if you've got an unlimited budget and total creative freedom, you might want to try to make the biggest thing. And the biggest thing's probably going to need a big ass team. And a big ass team sucks a lot of the fun out of making a game, because most of your problems are not technical problems. What kind of a code, structure should we have for this, or what engine are we using, or what tools are we using for the artists, or it's like, what's the build pipeline look like? How do we deal with commits of 1,000 people at once? Like EA's got with Battlefield. It sucks in there. Believe me, those guys have a hell of a thing to work against. And so it turns into a total nightmare. And so while it sounds like a fun problem, as the leader of that, you're only dealing with nightmares. And so that's my answer, is that I would need to drink a lot first and then come back with like an actual game. But I'll be sobbing, like uncontrollably into the palms of my hands for a few hours. on the way there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pose it like a like maliciously as a trick question, but I knew that there's not a great response to it. But it's interesting that you raised the point of, okay, now you basically, it's like it's a bit of the Midas touch, because money is not a problem, but then you're making this huge thing, and now you have like a bunch of other problems that you wouldn't have.
If you don't have money problems, you have people problems. Guess which ones are worse?
People.
Yeah.
People. It's always people.
And there's been like a few examples of games with basically unlimited budget in the past. I mean, I remember the whole Duke Nukem scenario, for example, where they just went on and never had any issues. So yeah, it's a bit of a curse there, right? But you didn't say what kind of huge ass game you'd make. So maybe you can answer that.
I love games where if I was gonna do like my what are we gonna do game, it would be a one kind of map, world, setting, whatever scenario, where there were multiple game types within it. So I've always had this idea for some kind of a like almost like imagine a volcano, like cavern or something where you have people like up on the walls and there's like rooms back in there. You got FPS going on in there, but you also have like a whole fleet of players who are just controlling, like locking rooms down and flooding channels and killing people over here. And then some people who can like see, like over maps, like super zoomed out, and they're just controlling, like the drop rates and regen spots. And so that you have like 6 games in one, and you have people, not just different classes, like a Team Fortress, but like totally different games in one game. Because I think the meta experiment there would be so fun to see how people kind of switch back and forth. And that would probably be the biggest loss of money of this $1 trillion game. But that's what I would do. I would waste all the money trying to do something insane like that.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Yep.